perspective. I'm not going to mix in with it Columbia and the others, but from Edison's perspective. And I wanted to break it down simply into three areas. The first one is what was the media that we were recording on, the cylinder, and how did that change? And the second one is what was the reproducer that we were playing it back on, because they changed a lot, and I've got examples we'll talk about. And then we'll go downstairs and look at some of the cylinder players in the evolution of Edison's inventions. So I just got some crib notes here. Most of you are, I know you are familiar with the fact that it started with tinfoil. And this is a fellow named Rene Rondo out in California, I think, has sold this tinfoil to play on tinfoil players, but they are a pain. We did this one time at one of our KAPS meetings. I think you put some tinfoil on a player. If I recall, I think I did.
We did brown wax, tried that.
Okay.
But I've never tried the tinfoil.
Never tried the tinfoil? Well,
Never could get anything to
in
work right.
1878, Edison produced a tinfoil player. We've got one downstairs that I'll show you that's a repro. But a steel needle would record in the tinfoil, and it was mounted on a brass drum tightly. But it had a series of problems with it. Well, first of all, Edison thought he was producing only for stenographic purposes. He didn't see any value in the phonograph for entertainment. And you couldn't reproduce it because if you had one copy and that was it. And if it tore, it was over. So it really wasn't very useful as a stenographic tool because of the fragility of the tinfoil. So the end result of that was that when they came out with the tinfoil player, he lost interest. He had a few other things that were occupying his interest, because that's when he really got into electrifying the New York scene. And for 8 to 10 years, he just didn't fool with it. Sometime around 1885, 86, he started to get interested again, because he started to conclude that the spring motor was more effective and had a wider use pattern than the electric, DC electric, that he was trying to use with the treadle machine and what was the other one that, well, he had one that used a DC motor. In any case, he started to get interested, and he had a couple of guys that worked with him that were working on refining the spring motor. And with it came the opportunity for a new type of cylinder. So in 1880, I believe it was 88, they started with brown wax, light wax. And this, of course, is an example of the early brown wax. No recording, no data on it, it's just music. And the reason he did that was there was a guy named Lippincott who was from the Columbia crowd that started recording music, and they were shooting for the coin-op business. And Edison got interested that if there's that kind of market, maybe I ought to get back into it. So he started exploring the ways to do brown wax cylinders and reproduce them. And that gets us really to the biggest obstacle that they had to overcome, and that is the reproduction of the cylinder. Anyway, back in that time, the only way to reproduce was they would have a player that was playing the original, and then they'd use tubing like this and little connectors. Some of them had big bars on them, and they might have 5 or 6 outlets on it, and they would hook that up and play the original, and then all the recorders of 8 or 10 machines that he had spread around the studio would be picking up that message and recording it on the cylinder. But it still wasn't a very high volume. It's hard to make money when you can only record 6 or 8 sellable copies at a time. And as a result, that became the most intriguing aspect of the cylinder phonograph for Edison. The bottom line was he got into the gold molded and came out with it in 1898, I think it was. Am I about right? No, 1902. He, and I don't fully understand this, but what I've read is they would take and they would record on a 5-inch cylinder, big 5-inch cylinder. And then they had a machine that they put that 5-inch cylinder in that had magnets that caused the cylinder to whirl. And while it was whirling, there were 2 gold devices in it that created a gold vapor. And that vapor would settle on the 5-inch cylinder and freeze the surface, make the surface pretty much indestructible. Then they would take that gold molded master and they'd make a series of submasters. There might be 10 of them, 12 of them. And now those submasters could be used time and time and time again, and they could make dozens of cylinders in a day instead of 6 or 7. And that really made the business take off, because now they had a way to reproduce in quantity, and they were reproducing this kind of cylinder, which is the gold molded, put the name on it and all that good stuff. So that started in 1902. Nothing much changed in the cylinder world until around 1908. And in 1908, Edison decided they were going to do 4-minute cylinders. And they came out with the black Amberols. You're familiar with them. Unfortunately, at almost the same time, Indestructible came out with celluloid and patented it. And this is a patented process that Edison spent 4 years trying to figure out how to break that patent or bypass the patent to get a celluloid record, because he is, like everybody else, saw that if it's that indestructible, it's going to last longer, it's going to have a bigger market. Well, he never could succeed at that. And finally, in 1912, he bought into the patent and paid him for it so that he could start making what we today know as blue Amberols. And I had this pink Lambert up here because that's part of that celluloid world that he couldn't penetrate for 4 years. Along the way, there were other kinds of cylinders made. The 3-inch one I've got a Columbia machine downstairs that plays these. I don't know. They just gave longer time. And that was one of the main issues in cylinder development, was how many records or how many tunes can you record on a record. They tried various ways to do that, but with little or no success other than the 4-minute. So that kind of covers the range of the cylinder development as I understand it. Now, anybody have any other thoughts on that?
And I think that was another reason why the 6-inch 3-minute cylinder didn't take off, is because the 4-minute came in and it just
wiped it out.
Wiped it out. You know, there's no. That's why it's very very rare to even find those now.
I think I've got 3 of them downstairs and a machine that plays them, but so what? I mean, it's just a little bit longer.
So why is the pink Lambert, I mean, you say they're hard to find, there's not many of them made, or was
Well-
that just part of the evolution? And they went to it and then passed it on up for something else?
Well, it was the same as this
Yeah.
in its recording quality, as far as I know. The uniqueness was the color of the cylinder and,
But it was a company, weren't they out of Chicago?
I think so.
Lambert, but they had black Lamberts, pink Lamberts, they even had brown color, and the company didn't exist very long. Because a lot of those
So
were,
just
they
the
were,
color
they
was
were,
the
well,
mistake?
they were 2-minute records too.
Okay.
And so then when the 4-minute came in, then that kind
Yeah.
of did them in. But the pink ones are the ones that are the most rare.
Yeah, there are a few around and it's hard to find.
Yeah.
This is a calorie charge.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Nice.
So if that kind of covers the evolution of the cylinder itself, we landed on the 4-minute in 1912, the 4-minute blue envelope. And they made these continuously from 1912 to 1929 when they went bankrupt. So let's talk about the reproducer, because the cylinder didn't accomplish a great deal if you didn't have a reproducer that would play it. The first reproducer that Edison came out with is called the automatic. And it just plays a 2-minute. And this has a rounded sapphire stylus in it. I believe that's right. Because he was concerned about the damage that the stylus did to the cylinder. So early on, he tried to improve upon the sharp stylus that was in use previously. The automatic came out in 1895. Okay? Do you have a different memory of that? Based on the books I've read, but,
May I see that one?
and it had a glass, according to the information I have, it had a glass diaphragm, very thin glass diaphragm.
There's another that they're calling, what's your next one?
This is the Model B,
Yeah.
and it very clearly says Model B on the bottom.
One I have, this is different.
Okay, we can look at the gem downstairs. It came out with an automatic on it when it was first introduced. But we'll look at them downstairs. But my understanding is that was what that was. Then this, in 1898, Edison upgraded the reproducer to the Model B. Now, one of the things that was going on here with reproducers, in addition to the diaphragm and the stylus, was the weight. And he fussed a lot with the weight of the diaphragm as it pressed on the record, because it damaged records, it would wear them out. This one, you'll note, has I'll pass it around, has a pretty heavy weight that's in the middle, and it presses directly on the cylinder that it's riding on. After the B, in 1902, he replaced the glass diaphragm and that central weight with the C. And you all are familiar with it because there's more C's around than probably anything else. And you notice this is where he introduced this weight that is up above the cylinder. It isn't directly on it, and it managed to distribute the weight more effectively. And I was wrong, that one doesn't have a sapphire. That has a metal, I think, stylus, because this is the one where the sapphire first got introduced, was in the diamonds, in the C reproducer, according to what I read.
Now, I've got a B that I'm rebuilding, and I think the stylus I got for it, they're making a sapphire stylus for it.
I think they retrofitted a lot of
Yeah.
them later because the original was pointed, sharper and
okay.
point.
Okay,
According to the information I read, the sapphire was introduced with the C, and
Okay.
it was rounded. It was
Okay.
more of a ball than it was a point,
okay.
to preserve the record.
And I think there's another style of the B where this weight it's not as bulky as this.
Like C?
Somewhere in between, because one I've got is not as thick as that. So they probably tried to adjust that to get some of the weight
Yeah.
off, and then before they went to the C.
But you see, the contrast here is he was putting a lot of emphasis on how to make the record last by adjusting the way the reproducer was made.
Yeah,
Something we don't think a lot about, but it was a big deal back then.
yeah.
That C also
Yeah, there's a stylus in there.
has a different kind of diaphragm in it. It's made out of copper instead of glass.
Oh,
Now, things kind of stabilized after that point, and there wasn't much change in the reproducer world until 1980. And you remember what happened in 1980? The 4-minute.
Yes.
So now all of a sudden, we got a new issue to deal with, and that is
smaller groups.
a smaller group. And the H came out. And this allowed you to play a 4-minute black amberol. Now, it's not as effective on a blue amberol, but it was designed to play the wax. I'm going to pass the K around because as a contrast, it's an interesting switch. The K has a dial on the bottom of it. I don't know if you all ever noticed that, but you switch from 2 to 4 on this one. The H you can't change. It's a 4-minute period. But they're basically the same design. Okay? And then that's the K. And you turn that, the stylus, it's got little arrows there. It says 2-minute on one side and 4-minute on the other. Now later, he introduced the M, the O, the S, and they're all dual playing reproducers. I don't have an M, but here's an O, and it's got the stem on it where you change it by turning that arrow, that device on the end of it. Look at that, and then the later.
Now, when they come up with the larger reproducers, and they made the larger hole in the carriage,
Yep.
did they retrofit the older ones with that too, or did they just?
There are, I'll show you here in a
Okay.
minute, diaphragms. This is one of the large diaphragms, the M.
Okay.
And it goes in a player that can accommodate a larger device. But then, and that was to produce more sound. That was the real idea behind the big diaphragm.
Yeah.
But there were an awful lot of players out there that couldn't accommodate the end because the hole in the carriage wasn't big enough. So here's an S, no, this is the R. And you'll notice that the part that sets down in the carriage is the same as a C, but the diaphragm sets above it,
Okay.
okay?
So that way people with older machines could buy the
They
better.
could get the
Okay.
heavy, the bigger diaphragm and the louder sound out of it. So that's a R. And then there was another one, the O as well, which is again a bigger, no, that's just the bigger diaphragm.
And here's the O here.
Excuse me.
Yeah, he's got the O over here.
And here's the S. This is the other one
Okay.
made to fit in the old style carriage
So R and S.
with
okay.
a larger diaphragm. That one's heavy.
And was there any difference in these, the R and the S, or?
I don't think, they had the large diaphragm.
Oh, this one's one that you could switch.
And now we're somewhere around 1911 when he came out with those two. And 1912 was the big change. Because 1912 is when this came out, the blue Emeralds, and with it, the ability to play with a different kind of stylus that was more productive and less damaging, a diamond, okay? So, there was a whole lineup of phonographs that came out in 1912 and 13, and with it, a whole lineup of new diaphragms. The M, this one came off of my Edison 1A downstairs, diamond stylus. And then you had the Diamond A, which would play 2 minutes as well as 4 minutes. It's got the little handle on the end of it.
Like the O.
The B, which is on several of the Amberolas, just 4 minute, but again, a diamond stylus. And the C. But they're basically, they just fit different machines, but they're all for the same purpose, to play a blue Amberol. Okay?
That's why on the Fireside players, you'll see that initially the Fireside A was supposed to be with the Fireside horn. And then the B was with the Signet. And then they started making the horizontal carriage. And then, but when they went to the Diamond B, then they locked out where you couldn't go to a 2 minute, because that, if you played a 2 minute record on that with a diamond stylus, you'd just be wrecking it.
Oh.
So they got it locked into the 4 minute on some of the Bs, and not all of them. Some of them you go back and forth to the 2 and the 4.
Okay. But that pretty much is the line of reproducers through the Edison world, and it really didn't change after you got the diamond class of reproducer. The only other thing I wanted to show you or let you know about, of course, you know that early on in the development of the phonograph, he was assuming you were going to also record things. So you got a recorder with the phonograph, and you got a shaver with the phonograph, and you got a little brush to keep the cylinder clean. So those were elements that were used for, I think I have a note here about when they stopped putting those in the kits. You could still buy them separately, but if I'm not mistaken, it was sometime around 1905 that they started eliminating the shaving knife and the brush because nobody was using it.
When they went to the standard B, the standard A had that, just like
That's
you
right.
said. Yeah.
The other thing that they came out with a lot of little gizmos for is volume. The wife says, look, if you want to play that thing, you better turn the volume down because it's keeping me awake, or something to that effect. And it would keep the sound down. I don't know if you've ever seen one like that. I've got a couple other types.
I've got one that's different. I like that one.
Now, this is a little simpler. It's just got a little valve that you turn to block the sound. And this one likewise has a device on that closes down the aperture so that less sound.
That's the one I've got, but
isn't. So there are probably a half a dozen more, but these are the ones I have that were sold to manage the volume. I've got one downstairs that I didn't bring up that you put in the horn, and it's like the what do you call the things that you do with the trumpet? The
Mute.
the mute.
The mute,
Yeah.
and it works like the mute. It just cuts the sound off.
Seems like I heard somewhere that as far as limiting the volume, they would put a sock in it.
Well, yeah,
And
you-
that's
that-
where the
that
term
came
put a
from-
sock in it
Yeah.
came from.
Yep.
That's what I heard, yeah.
sure, that would make sense.
That's right.
It's just anything to deaden the sound.
Yeah.
So that pretty much covers.
That's your most rare one right there.
I don't remember
I think.
where I got that, but I think I bought it off of eBay at one point. But that kind of lays out the things that happened that weren't related directly to the phonograph. That was the reproducers or the cylinder devices and some sound volume adjustments. Now, we can go downstairs and look at some of the machines that came out to utilize or forced some of these changes.
Question, I know I've been a little confused on the reproducers. I know the Model C was made for the black wax records. And really, if you got black wax, that's really all you should just be using the Model C, right?
It's got the rounded sapphire.
And then they came out with the Model H. Does it hurt I know that's for the black, originally it's for the black 4-minute records. Could you play the blue Amberolls with the Model H? Would that hurt it? Or,
Yeah, I think you can play it with
Play it.
it.
We should do it all the time.
oh, yeah.
It's not going to hurt the record.
Now, if you had, let's say, the Amberola 30, could you put the black wax 4-minute on that?
I don't think it fit.
Wouldn't fit.
I don't think it
Plus
fit.
the
I never
diamond,
tried it because I was
the
always
diamond
afraid.
silence would cut it. would
Okay,
cut
so
it.
that's a no-no.
So you
on
can't
that.
But there is.
I've never tried it for good reason.
As an example, this is a
You know, for the Model
this or
30.
this would be on the 30.
Yeah.
Okay, and they don't fit in any way, shape, or form the way a H or a K or those.
Yeah.
They just won't fit on them.
And I've learned too, through people sending those through eBay, like the Model 30s, they're leaving them connected, the throat into the horn, and they're snapping off.
Really?
Yeah, people, they're not disconnecting it, or at least make it so the horn doesn't, flop around. I've seen so many of those where they say, well, the reproducers, the neck snapped off because the horn was left to flop around.
I tell you what,
Hot metal.
I've had lousy experience with buying phonographs through
Yeah.
eBay or because of the shipping.
Yeah.
Even the Columbia that I got, the concert that plays this, when I got it, the housing for the reproducer was busted. It's pot metal, and it was broken. I had to get it another one built, because these guys don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're shipping.
Here, well, meeting, I bought a Model 30 from a lady up in Wisconsin, and I talked to her, I said, well, you got it packed, and I told her what we were talking about there, and she said, oh, I'll pack it. And she packed the phonograph itself very well. There's lots of packing. She did nothing with she left it connected, and it was left, and it was snapped off.
Didn't stabilize the stuff inside.
Yeah.
And that's because they started making that shank out of pot metal.
metal.
Earlier ones are brass,
Oh, really?
and the way you can tell the difference, if you got a diamond C,
Well, this one's brass, I think.
well, it's,
Isn't that what you're talking about? That part?
yes, and this is steel. So those are the best ones to get. They were earlier. Then later they started making this out of pot metal, that out of pot metal, and then it all went to pot.
I wonder if that's where that expression comes from. It went to pot.
Probably,
Probably did.
because of pot metals.
It was cheaper and people went to that as
Problem
less
with this rug.
expensive. I know, sweetheart, that rug has gone to pot, hasn't it?
Yes, it is.
We
Well, let's go downstairs and we'll look at and play a few of the machines that, it doesn't matter how you put them there. I'll move them downstairs and put them back in my cabinet, but I thought.
I've never had one of these up. They're nice.
Okay,
All right.
I'm gonna get something to drink when I go downstairs.
And I'm gonna follow suit with you.
As a bonus.
Cat. Is your cat is driving.
Museum, I guess I don't think I've ever seen one.
Well, let's walk over here in the corner. My collection is not organized in any particular fashion, so we're gonna walk around a little bit. This up here is the, I think you've got one just like it, Ron, which are very similar.
Mine's different.
Okay,
Mine is the Cruci, which was the very first one, the 1878 one
okay.
too,
And this is,
or 1877. I mean,
the Bremer Brothers model, but it's a repro of the tinfoil, basic tinfoil concept. This is the brass strap that held the tinfoil in place. And of course, the governor is you, because there is no other speed control except how fast you turn that.
have you ever been able to do any recordings on that? Have you tried?
I saw it done when I was up at Greenfield Village. The guy did it on a machine up there, but no, I'm not fooled with it. I tried to put the tinfoil on, and I spent a couple hours working on that, and then finally got so frustrated, I just said, that's
Yep,
it.
yep.
Yeah. So the tinfoil and then the spring motor, and the next one he came out with was the home. Now let's see, I got the homes are over here. I'm trying to remember where I have them.
There's no place like
Well,
home.
one of the homes is over there with Broken Spring. I said a standard. but
Oh,
I
it's
think
a home, okay.
This is, in fact, this is the first photograph I ever bought. We were in an antique store in down in Mount Dora, Florida, and the guy was playing it, and we'd never seen anything like it, and listened to it and got to talking to him, and the guy said, well, he gave me a price on it, and I bought it, and it's been one of the best machines I've got. And then he told me about the show in Orlando, which was coming up 2 weeks later, and that's when everything kind of,
Yeah.
I was hooked then.
That's just history.
So anyway, this is the home, and it's a home A. Nothing fancy about it. It just has the ability to play. I think I've got a cylinder on there.
And that's a long case, Ron.
Yeah.
Let's see if it doesn't. If there's, I think it's wound. So, just
So you got that horn from him too?
from
From that guy that you bought the player? Okay.
I bought. It was rusted and terrible looking.
You have a car person do that?
A friend of mine is a car builder, and I asked him if he could spray paint it, and he said sure, no problem.
And what do you have to do? Because I've got something I need done by a friend of mine that does that.
I don't know. I imagine he ran it through his sandblaster, but I don't know for sure because I wasn't there when he did
Because
it.
you have to get all that off for you.
Yeah, it was a lot of crud, particularly down in here.
Then
but-
it turned out nice.
Yeah, they're
Gee.
beautiful, and these are pretty horns. I like them.
Yeah.
So anyway, the Home A was the first new iteration when after Edison came out with the spring motor, and it was adaptable to the 2 or 4 minute with the change in gearing, which I put on this one, and it. If I'm not mistaken, I think this came with the shaver on it. It should have.
Yes.
So he came out with the home, and then after that, let me get over here to my cheat sheet. This is the Model A. The Model B, which came out in 05, had a C reproducer and eliminated the shaving knife, and the Model C was And then when the Model C was introduced in 1908, there were two obvious changes. The elimination of the swing arm, like this has.
Yeah.
And then he started putting big horns on because it was 1908 and he gave in.
They had complaints where people were saying that the smaller horns that normally came with those weren't putting out enough volume, so they came out with a larger horn.
They also had complaints from wives about these things were dust
Yep.
catchers.
Well, they were hard. They were also, if you had kids running around the house, they were also kind of hanging out to where
Yep.
they could run into them.
Yeah.
That happened. And
Behind you is the what do they call it? Open that door. The machine that has the broken spring had been in there, but that's xylophone. And this was only out in the market for a year, from 1909 to 1910, and the sound all comes out the one end there. That was one of many solutions put forth to control the wives' dislike of the dust catching.
Who'd you get that
I bought
from?
that from the guys in California.
Oh, California.
Oh,
Yeah.
the elephants?
Elephants, yeah.
Those are nice.
Several years ago. They're hard to find. You don't see very many of them, but yeah, I bought that up in Union, yeah. Anyway, after the home, the next evolution was the 1898 is when the Standard came out, the Model A. And the Standard, now he was worried about pricing. That's really what the driver of the Standard was, because these machines were, $40, $50, and they were bypassing a huge part of the population. So the Standard came out, and I think originally it was 20 or 25. We've got a couple of Standards around here. You guys, I know, are familiar with them. I think this is a Standard over here. Yeah, I'm sorry, that is a home.
Yeah.
And that's a Fireside. There's a Standard
Standard
over here.
down here.
Okay. And this is a Standard with the top now. Now the only thing that,
That's a standard D
yes,
or an E, one or two.
well, I think it's, I don't tell, yeah, that's a Don Cathell. I've got several Don's horns
he does good
because
work.
they are nice looking.
See, that was a mistake when they went to this,
The top mount,
well, where they changed when they went to Model D and E, where they've got pot metal bearing, where on the end of the mandrel, instead of going all straight back into the gear, and they're all a problem.
They expand.
And if you hadn't had a problem with it yet,
Yeah, they freeze up.
it'll eventually, yeah.
And I think they did that for,
Right down.
was there some kind of patent thing going
Oh,
on
there
where
it
they
goes.
had to change that?
but I think
Did
this
they-
one,
I thought
They
they were
had
just
tons of
doing
patent wars.
well, that was continual.
Back then they were all trying to steal each other's information, but I heard that was, he did that to avoid.
This one I gotta lubricate it because I can't maintain its binding up.
I think
It's nice and quiet.
the belt may be a little loose.
Okay. Well, the tension,
It's like put it down again and see if the belt
If
keeps
the
on
belt-
going.
well, the belt's turning.
If it changes,
Can I change the speed?
you can't see it.
Tim's.
The speed.
Well, it did slow down, yes, but it may be the tension, the weight on it may be the problem too.
Whoa. Anyway, it needs lubrication. I can tell you that for sure. Because I never play it. The after the Standard, which was intended to broaden the market by the price point, these only had a single spring in them, and they only played 1 to 2 cylinders. Then that was another issue. People wanted them to play more if they could, but the trade-off was the size of the spring. The gem came out 1 year after the standard. And this, of course, that's a B. I've got A's up there. And one of those is the banner A, and the other one is the only difference in them really was the way the casings were made.
Branded.
Yeah, that's got the branded case.
Oh, okay.
And that one has the banner.
And then they got one that was an A that was earlier than that. It was the drip pan that had no wooden case.
Yeah, and I never got one of those. I never found
I've
one.
got one, and they're hard to find.
So I've
But it does have a little drip pan under it.
without the wooden base on it. I've got 4 of them, I think, but that none of them are that. And there's the maroon ones over here. After the and this is an automatic, I think. Brian, let me see if I can get that out.
Yeah, that's an automatic.
It should have
They're made like.
Why does that not want to? I guess I have to unscrew both of these. Come on, get out of there. Oh well, it's not important. But I was just going to look at that to compare it. But anyway, that's
Well,
an automatic.
this is the only one that was made just for the earlier.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, excuse me.
But the automatic it's elevated. It has one at this level, then another one above it.
Okay, so you're saying that's an automatic, but it's not the first automatic. Is that what you
It's not the automatic that's on the early home.
Okay. Let me see what's on this one. Now that one's
That's
got
a C.
a C on it.
Unless you don't have one with a 4-minute. Is that a 2 4-minute?
I don't think so. I think that's just a, let's see what it is. It's an H,
Okay.
so it's a 4-minute.
So so you got the little lead floppy up here behind it. So that's over, and you take that off, it's a 2-minute.
Mm-hmm.
That's 4 minutes.
Okay.
And that was an add-on. That's what they got later when the 4 minutes came out.
And there's your key. Okay, so the gems came out in 1899. You know why they came out, right?
Are they seem cheaper than?
The guys that are beside it, driving it.
Yeah.
You got the Busy Bee, the Q, the Puck,
And the Eagle.
and they were all
Cheap.
virtually giveaways. And so he came out with the gem to be a competition with that. And I think I've got an ad over on the far wall that says, buy 10 cylinders and it'll give you the player.
Oh,
Which, good marketing. You know, that's a scheme that they follow today. Following the introduction of the gem, the Fireside came along, your favorite.
Yeah.
And there's a Fireside over there with the glass on it. I think there's
now whose horn is that?
I bought that from Gaffel, but that's the fellow over in Pennsylvania that makes them, isn't it?
Or New
You're
Jersey.
talking users?
Whoever the supplier to Don was.
Okay, so that's different than the one I got from you. It's
Oh, it's a
I've got
different
the fluted.
Oh, okay.
Yours is fluted.
No, that's a Paul Baker. I got it's fluted.
Yeah, I did. That's
Just,
just
mine's not. It's not that small. It's bigger. So he had different.
Different ones?
Yeah, I think it's fluted too.
Okay.
I like that smaller size.
Well, it was the only one that he had when I bought it, so I didn't have a lot of selection.
Choice of one.
And see it?
Yeah,
I think that with the reproducer you have
is Rome.
upstairs that you was calling a concert or what was the one or an automatic.
Yeah, you think it's really for?
It's a lyric
Okay,
for a
I'm
combi.
sorry. I'll accept that.
Yeah,
That's
because I mean,
correct.
you'll see.
Yeah, it looks like this, yeah, with this. I couldn't figure out why I had this pin there, because in the picture side, we got into the furniture type photographs, really. You see there's a whole row of Amarillas over here that came out in 1912, 13, 14 with the Diamond C. I think I've got a 5, an Amarillo 5, I got an 8, a 30, a 50, a 75, and the 1A that's right here, which is by far the best playing instrument I've got.
What are those ones for now? Are they still holding the same? Or?
The 1As?
Yeah.
I don't know, that was a $5,000 machine when I bought it.
I think it still is.
Still.
Yeah, they may have gone, like one went for a little less than that.
Just condition.
That's the one I
probably.
do not have.
But they are, of course, now you get into, it's got an automatic shut off on it. The only thing they haven't ever figured out is an automatic changer. You got to go up to the hexaphone to get there, and then it's not automatic. You still have to do the changing yourself. But it plays smooth, and it has a real rich sound to it. This one was originally put with an L reproducer. But the one I've got upstairs is an M that I took off of that, and I don't have another one, so that's why that is missing
Now
here.
the M is a 4-minute only.
I've never played anything on there with a 4 minutes. Yeah.
And the L, was that the one with the little
I
dial
don't
that's
have
stuck?
an L.
Oh, but L is the one that has, does it have a?
No, there was
Was the L the one that was a 2-minute? Was that the 2-minute player then?
no, they came out with an L. The book says that this came out originally with the 1A did with an L reproducer.
Okay.
But
will
I
that,
had an
will
M.
that just play 4-minute only, or is that
There's no speed. There's no speed change on it.
it's strictly
It's
for
just
the-
a 4-minute. And for the most part, that's all that any of the Amarillos were used for, because they came out to play in Amarillo.
See, this was similar, get up like the opera.
Yeah, now that's right. I've got an opera back in the corner.
It has the shut off.
Yes, the one with the self-suspended horn there.
Yeah.
It plays.
I really like operas too.
Yeah, this is the same mechanism as the
1A.
1A. Yeah, I mean. Good rich sound.
I could have gotten 4 of those for that Adelia I got. That's what I probably should have done. Just bought some more.
And that pretty much is, I mean, with the exception of just playing the Amarillos, which all play pretty much the same, that's the range of
Now,
instruments.
when did the Triumph? Did Triumph come out before the operas?
Yes.
Okay.
And as I was saying when we came downstairs, according to the literature I've read, the Triumph has a fancier case to it, but the Triumph is basically the spring motor player,
Okay.
just upgraded.
This is okay.
That's a 50.
Yeah.
This is a 30.
Right in the cabinet.
I bought the cabinet, drop it down in,
Yeah.
and there's a 75 right there.
I was looking for your. Oh, here. It's the 5.
I don't know whether it's the 5 or the 8. Let's see, what's this one?
This is the 5.
This is the 8 over here, so yeah, that's the 5.
So, what's your favorite player to play, like the Blue Everos and then like the Wax? And do you have any?
Well, I
like, favorite-
rarely play the waxes, truthfully.
Okay, all right.
The Blue Emeralds, I'll play them on the 1A. all the time, because it's got the richest sound to it, and it's easy to play, to run.
Yeah. Now, this is the one that has, the 5 has a loud motor. And,
Well, that one
and
has
all
a
of them
loud
did. The 6, I've got a 5 and a 6. The 6 is much quieter.
Is it?
Basically, a little different mechanism. It looks more like the Triumph,
Okay.
you know, the Spark. Yeah, they said that was.
And this is the Triumph right here that we were working with earlier. And this, by the way, is a Brian cabinet,
Oh,
as is this one. I bought both of these from Brian over the years, so I thought I'd keep them together. They might breed.
they're friends.
Yeah, they're friends.
This one that pulls out the other side.
That goes both ways, yeah.
Yeah,
But this is probably the nicest cylinder
yeah.
that I got.
I'm really. I shouldn't have
Shouldn't have
sold that
sold
one
it.
to you. I shouldn't have sold that one to you.
Well,
That would have looked good with my Idelia sitting on that.
yeah,
thing, you
yeah,
know?
it would. And we went up to Brian and I did the last auction up in Michigan, and they had that rack. Now, I don't think that rack is original, like a 1908 rack or something, but I liked the Edison engraving on the top, and it looked kind of neat. So
Oh, I think you did well with getting that. And it wasn't that
no,
much.
I don't think I paid but $100.
Yeah, that's what I say, or
Something like that.
somewhere around there. But that was good that you put the 4-minute wax on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there is a rhyme to my process here. Each one of these cabinets has a number on it, and then I've indexed everything that's in the cabinet, so I know. For the most part, if you asked me for a title, I'd look up the title in my book over there, and it would tell me which cabinet to go to.
Wow. And the one you got upstairs goes right in there.
Yes, yes, that's true.
You know, they had some really good titles on these, and too bad that the records didn't turn out that good, that they disintegrate. Because they got some good
Well, they sure do
orchestra
break
and band
these.
music.
I've thrown away several that we bought up in Michigan because you can look at them and they'll split.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, the black amberols, they're so brittle, and of course they're more brittle now than they were when they were new.
And then they get this film on them.
The hazy film.
Yes. Now you'll play them, and it'll take it off, and I guess it'll reoccur back on there.
But it also took out a little part of the cylinder with it, I think.
Yeah, probably.
When you played it. So is there anything else I can share with you on, or do
Yes, you
wanna
can
talk
share
about?
this one with me right here. Help me load it in my
Yeah,
car.
right. I don't think I can do that.
Well, I've got plenty of help here.
So we've got, I think, I've concentrated mostly, as you guys know, on cylinders the last several years, partially because space becomes such a factor in a collection. And I've got close to 75% of the blue emeralds that were ever made.
So how does that go as far as numbers? How many?
I'd have to go look at
Translate.
my sheet. There
Look
is,
at the word translate. You know.
there are,
Is there a certain area of numbers that are harder to find?
yeah, well, of course, the higher
5,000,
you get, the harder they are to find. There's also some numbers in the, like there's one 1520 that I can't find. I never have been able to find.
You know what the title is?
I do know, but I don't know it
Yeah,
on top of my head. I can look and tell you.
Huh.
But there are a few in the lower ranges that they must not have made very many of them. There's what are you looking for?
I'm going to find out what 1520 is.
Well, right on top there, Brian, right above you, is one of the blue amberol. This one right here.
Okay.
That
I was going to look in this one.
It's on page 30. So if I go over here to page 30, it's 32, 30.
It's
No,
1521.
I gotta find 1520. Here it is.
So I see addendum.
Nita Gitana.
What's it called?
Nita Gitana. And that probably means by that title that it was a foreign record and didn't have very many copies of it
Sell
made.
there. I found somebody the other day that liked Hawaiian.
You really?
Wow.
Yes.
Man, you guys could sell 1,000,000 cylinders.
Oh, it was the Russian guy.
Oh, really?
He,
Yeah,
he
they-
loved Hawaiian.
They're hard to sell. Well, so my, this is my indexing system in here. So all the blue amberols are listed by number, title, name, and then over here it tells me which cabinet it's in.
Wow.
And
I can't even tell you which room.
I understand. I'm just,
Very organized.
I guess that, well, if you're gonna, you know, if you really set out to collect a group,
Yeah.
you gotta define how you're gonna know what that group is. And,
Well, thanks for going to all the research and all the stuff for doing that.
well, I hope I
Appreciate it.
didn't mislead anybody on anything, but I've been going back and trying to refresh my memory by
And
reading.
it's hard. It's hard to.
There's
can't
so
remember
much
all
out
that
there.
stuff.
And yeah, it's just overwhelming.
That's a lot of information.
So the rest of the players there's several diamond disc players here, and there's some 78s.
That's original.
That's the one that goes with the spring motor. I just set it over there to.
Man, that's a nice horn.
I think I bought that.
Now,
spring-
was that from Paul?
No, I think I bought that from those fellas down in Texas, the father and son.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Boris.
Yeah, yeah. I believe that's who I purchased
All right.
it from.
David and Bill. And look at I love the crank on that.
But I've got to take that one apart. and
National
see if I can
Phonograph
figure out why
Company.
it's- The brake doesn't work.
Now,
So it just, you
That-
wind it up and
that
it's just gonna run
crank,
until the line. The
expensive.
spring is.
Try to find one. I'm thinking.
Here.
Try to go down at the next one and see how far we can go down and pick up. He's trying to talk him through.
Yeah,
That was Danny.
yeah.
We're gonna try. This is Ron right in front of us, isn't it?
Oh,
Yeah.
no, I did.
That's Ron. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's the caboose he's talking about?
Oh, it's a little.
I
It's,
see
it's
it.
right there.
So just keep on going. Don't have to
worry about crossing there. Let's hope he didn't block it all the way down here. What time is it? Well, it's getting on to 4:06. Tim, looks like it's... No, it's blocked. Well, if they keep going that direction, we'll be out before the other. Well, gee whiz. Well, he didn't make it. Yeah, I said this is where we should have been able to cross over. Oh, there is no other